All right, let's go out to Boise and talk to the great Steven. What's up, Steven in Boise?
Hey, how's it going, John? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it, man. We're partying. How about you?
Oh, just living the dream.
That's so great. Like the last 3 or 4 shows, the first caller always says, I'm living the dream. And that almost always means for sure not living any sort of dream at all.
Right,
Maybe a nightmare. But what's up, man?
So my question today is, I kind of feel like I'm realizing I tend towards codependency and kind of people-pleasing in my life. And I've kind of tracked that, kind of seeing how my dad exampled that for me. He's pretty much been kind of in a codependent type of marriage, really just kind of appeases his way through his marriage, kind of not standing up for what he thinks and stuff, just trying to not rock the boat, just kind of slide on by. And then here I come up through life and go into the life of adulthood, and with friendships and work, and especially like my marriage, I kind of find myself really kind of doing the same thing, just kind of not being the real me, just kind of putting on in front of people what I want them to see, and not really, communicating well, because I'm just trying to, kind of just appeasing my way through life, I feel.
And have you found yourself that, how old are you now?
I'm 36.
Okay, 36. So perfect. So have you found in the last 4 or 5 years, it's usually right when somebody turns 30-ish, and then on through 35, you have found that the very thing you were working against, which is people leaving you or abandoning you or getting frustrated by you, are now leaving you and frustrated by you and kind of moving on with their lives?
Yeah, a little bit, or kind of, getting to where it's more, seem like that's kind of on the verge of being that as well.
Okay.
And there have been a couple like that. Yeah.
So what happened that precipitated this call? Like something usually happened and you're like, dude, I've got to think of another way of doing life. What happened?
Well, really, it kind of came down to, in my marriage, my wife was just kind of like, hey, man, you gotta stop being frozen in place. And, you just gotta start, having direction, and not just worrying about, what others think, or even more so, I guess, maybe on her part as well. And again, I'm thinking, okay, if I go and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. Well, maybe it doesn't really align with hers. I know we've had a couple disagreements on a thing where she has an opinion one way, I have an opinion the other way. And in the end, I just kind of go, and after a while, like, I don't want the fight. I don't want to keep going around this. So sure, fine. We'll just kind of do what you want to do. And then she can see, well, hey, he's not really on board with this. And so we just kind of get stuck kind of in that cycle, and that loop, going around and around, kind of the same thing, and nothing really gets resolved because I don't want the fight and she wants it resolved, and I don't want to upset her because I want to go this way, and it just, kind of goes round and round in circles.
So just imagine what happens if you dug your heels in. I'm talking about something minor. I don't want to eat at that restaurant. I've been thinking about it all day. I don't want to eat there. It's gross. I want to eat here. And she gets so mad. She says, well, fine, I'm going by myself. And she leaves you at home that night. And you are pissed. And she is so mad. Is she going to leave you? Is she going to divorce you over that?
No, not over that.
Would you divorce her?
No.
So what's the thing you're so worried about?
I guess, that it's that I just want to be, I guess, I don't like to be in conflict. I just don't like the feeling of the conflict, I guess. And so I'd rather just say,
but
okay,
you also
whatever.
don't like the life that you've created, which is everybody, like what you think and dream about and really feel deeply. Nobody cares because you have squashed that so hard.
Right.
You kind of bound yourself up. Like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Right, yeah.
Oh, man. Was your mom abusive to your dad?
I say emotionally, pretty emotionally.
Okay.
There was even a couple times she even threw out the threat of a suicide to get him to do what she wanted him to do.
Okay. Did that roll over to you too? Let me say this. so sometimes I could say abusive, and people think like hitting with sticks and like physical abuse. In the psychological world, we talk about position powers, and there's the one up position, which is usually, not always, but usually men. They flex, they lord over, right? They're big and they lean over, they hit, they throw, and it's often the feminine position. Not always, but it's the one down position, which is well, I guess I just won't eat then. Y'all just go do your thing, and I won't eat, or well, if you weren't so stupid, then I guess this wouldn't have happened. So I guess I'll just do it all. And either one of those is an absolute power play, right? To get what you want. And both of them, I think, are insidious in their own ways. But which one did your mom use?
She used the kind of the second one.
Okay.
And she would kind of utilize silent treatments very well. I mean, as I kind of learned, they would have some issue, and she would just, transform into this, look like she was, 40 years older than she was, just moping around for 3 days. And then suddenly, 4 days later, the sun comes up bright and shiny, and everything's fine and cool, you think, until the next thing comes along.
Did she do that to you as a kid?
Yeah, she did that to me. And I kind of first became aware of that kind of as a teenager. There was one instance where I kind of had dropped the ball on something. And instead of, her saying, hey, you dropped the ball on this, son, she's like, hey, you upset me. You ruined my day, and kind of, put it back upon herself. And then, went to the kind of the same emotions.
So I'll catch some flack for this, and I don't care. I think parents who utilize the silent treatment on their children, that's abusive. What it's doing is it's severing the relationship between the parent and a child and forcing the child to rebuild that connection. And that is not a skill or a task a child can do outside of just any sort of pleasing behavior, right? There's no way a child can fix that, can be restorative, because the power dynamic is so wonky. So anytime a parent utilizes the silent treatment, especially on the back of what you got, which is, you failed me, so I feel this way and it's your fault, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old, 9-year-old, and so I'm cutting off my relationship, your relationship with your mother. Now just imagine like a football coach doing that, or a soccer coach. Hey, you made me mad, so I am cutting off the relationship with your mom for 3 days. That person would go to jail. I can't do that. But inside houses, it happens all the time. And so we're really, you and I could talk for a couple hours, and so we're really condensing your life into just a few minutes. But extrapolate that out here. It doesn't surprise me that at 36, the greatest gift you feel in your body is everything above the water is still. Mm-hmm. Because any sort of dysregulation, any sort of I'm trying to think of it, any sort of fires in the house got you cut off from mom. You watched your weak father just get beat down, and you guys were left trying to control how mom felt, and that's no kid's job. Okay, and now you got a wife that is somewhat begging you, will you please tell me what you want? I don't want to be married to I can't anchor into a sponge that is just gushing through life and will do whatever their boss says, whatever their stupid friend says, whatever dumb neighbor says, whatever their old college roommate says. I want somebody who I can anchor into and who can anchor into me. We can do this thing together. And so she's asking you for that. Why are you scared to put that out there?
I guess, kind of like I said before, I have those feelings of, okay, I just don't want people upset at me, or I just don't want the conflict. That I'd rather just hide under a rock than deal with the conflict, and then again, kind of, I guess those same feelings of being a kid kind of come up again, where I was pretty much trained, hey, just make mom happy, just right. Kind of say what she wants, even if you don't feel that's what you really want. Just do that, and your life will go, you'll be able to slide on by.
There you go. And what I don't want for your marriage is either of you to slide on by. I want you all to tangle and co-create something magic. And good for you. You married somebody that's not your mom, it sounds like. Sounds like you married somebody that really wants you involved in this thing.
Right.
How long y'all been married?
14 years.
How many kids you got?
5.
God almighty, 5 kids. Okay, so is she watching this thing recreate itself?
Yeah.
Or she feels like she's got to make every decision for every person all the time?
She's kind of said that. She's a few times said, hey, I feel like I'm kind of the primary parent here.
Oh, man. And does she feel like she has a 6th kid in you?
I think so, yeah. She's sometimes, I don't know if she's really kind of said that out loud, but just kind of in some of the actions and things said, I could kind of sense that.
Do you also feel this fear of conflict with your kids too?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, probably a little bit. Where we haven't had like any like major stuff yet. The oldest is 12, but so she's getting to the point where we're probably going to be hitting more. She comes into her own more conflict and stuff, and I guess that kind of scares me a little bit.
All right, so the idea of codependency is I value other people's lives more than my own. Okay? If we drilled, and I'm going to let them do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, because at the end of the day, I can't imagine my life without that relationship. My life ends. My oxygen runs out without this relationship. So I'll let them drink. I'll let them abuse me. I'll let them do whatever they want. I don't necessarily hear that with you.
Okay.
What I hear with you is somebody who is very conflict avoidant. And in a weird way, you may not even really care. Kind of like when my wife was asking me about my wedding, like it took us a minute, like for her to understand, like, no, for real, I just want to marry you. I literally don't have an opinion on where we eat, what we don't do. I want this kind of music. And she's like, cool, do that. So sometimes there's some negotiation there. Here's what you've got to do moving forward. Number 1, you've got to decide I'm breaking the cycle that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you have to acknowledge I don't have a set of skills that I'm going to have to get, and then I'm going to have to practice those skills. You are Shaquille O'Neal back in the day. I can't make a free throw. That means I've got to practice free throws. I can dunk the basketball. Nobody can stop me in the paint, but I can't make a free throw. I've got to practice free throws. That's what you're going to have to do. And what that means is you're going to have to practice saying out loud, I want this. I need this. We're going to go eat here. Here's my boundaries on X and Y and Z, whatever. And then you're going to have to practice feeling super uncomfortable and letting that feeling just roll through you. And probably come up with some sort of language with your wife and say, honey, you're about to get a whole new husband, but it's going to take me I'm going to have to work to get there. Will you help me? And she'll say, oh my God, that'd be amazing. And say, I know you probably don't think it's super hot to hook up with your another 6th son, so I'm going to become your husband. What do you need? And let her tell you, here's what I need. And then you have the courage and the strength to say, here's what I need. And then y'all can start working on meeting each other's needs. And what you're going to find is whoosh, the whole thing lifts up. It's just going to take some time because you are literally taking 35 years of life and trying to control alt delete it in many ways. And also, by the way, you don't have to lose your compassion and your kind of just chill attitude towards life. That can still be a part of who you are. You're not just going to turn into like Jocko and be like, all right, let's go run 50 miles. That's probably not going to happen. But you can have some opinions and you can put your foot down and your wife can put her foot down. And that's when the real fun begins. But if you both put your foot down in service of this incredible marriage that we get to decide what it looks like in this life we're building for our 5 kids, then those disagreements are absolutely worth it. You just got to navigate how it looks. For me, I'll tell you, for me and my wife, we don't do good with it's not spur of the moment, but with flash fights. If a thing comes up and I say this and she says that, we both know we're going to put a pin in this and talk about it later, because we're not going to solve it right then, because her things kick in, my things kick in, and all of a sudden we're fighting. We are not trying to solve the problem. But then we loop back in a day, at the end of that day, 30 minutes later, depending on what we're talking about, or a week later, man, we can solve that thing, no problem. And I like hearing what she has to say about it. And I like feeling uncomfortable and being like, I really thought this, but I think about, dude, I love that stuff. And like you, take some practice. Take some practice. I think you're headed in the right way. I think that, let's do this. Let's start this exercise with this. I want you to sit down today by yourself and write down in your marriage, here's 4 or 5 things I really, really need. Here's 4 or 5 things I really want for me and my wife. I want for me. I want for my kids. And then I want you to take your wife out and read those out loud and tell her, this is making me nervous and uncomfortable, but I'm committed to changing this. I want to give you something concrete to anchor into. And then we're going to practice getting there. And hear hers too, because she's got a role to play here. And her role is not your mama. Her role is your wife, your partner, your co-creator, person that's building this life with you. You got it, brother. Thank you for being brave and giving me a shout.